Okay guys, Ramon here, and in this video we're going to be talking about this amazing guitar which I'm holding. Now the first thing that you're going to notice about this guitar is it's got Daniels on the headstock. Okay, it doesn't have Gibson. Okay, now this is a replica guitar, a replica of the great guitars made in the 1950s. And what does a replica mean? Well, say for example you get a modern Gibson guitar, or you get I really love the ESP Navigators. Yeah, and there's other sort of bona fide makes that make sort of a Gibson style guitar. The replica guitar is kind of one stage up, where you're really trying to get to the essence of a. So it's like holding a guitar, one of those bursts, because there was something magical of the burst between 58 and 60, and Gibson, they get close, they get very very close, and some of their instruments are fantastic. But maybe there's something still not kind of right with them. Maybe it's the glue, the high glue they're not using, or the kind of nitros they're not allowed to use because it's illegal in America. They can't use the same nitro as they used in the 50s. All these kind of things, add up, and the plastics, and this and that, and so on and so forth. So the replica makers really go to the next degree. But most replica makers are making guitars out of their garden shed. And they're putting Gibson on the logo, okay? So I really, when I first had, because there's a whole backstory to this guitar which I'll go into, but really this time around I wanted Darren to put his own name on the headstock, because I don't want to be playing a Gibson, a guitar with Gibson if it's not made by Gibson. I think for me it's nothing to do with, I'm trying to be a good guy and it's illegal or whatever. It's not illegal, who knows, but it's nothing to do with that. It's just that, that Daniels guitar made this guitar, so I want people to know, because if I'm at a gig, for example, and I see somebody with a Les Paul guitar and it has something weird on the headstock, I'm going to be much more interested than if it just has Gibson. If it just has Gibson, it's going to be like, well, it's just a Gibson. But if it has another name on it, it's going to be like, whoa, what's that? That's interesting. Then I'm going to be like checking them out on the internet, because I love that guitar and it's got something else on the headstock. So that's kind of why I wanted the name Daniels Guitar, because it's just cooler and it gives respect to the maker. I'm not interested in Gibson, they've got loads of money. They don't need any more money. They don't need any more promotion. But the guy that made this is an amazing builder, and so for me it's great that if his name is on the headstock, he's hopefully it will get a bit more notoriety, and that's the reason. So the story about this guitar was when Darren from Daniels Guitars is a make, the name of the brand, and Darren is the maker, and Darren's a very good friend of mine, and when he first set about making these bursts, and when I say bursts, it's a guitar from 58 to 60 with the kind of cherry whatever finish, and sometimes they have flames, sometimes they are plain, But when he first started making, this was one of the first guitars he made, one of the first guitars he ever made, and not long after he made it, he lent it to me. And so I toured with this guitar, and one of my favourite bands that I formed was called Desert Rock, and it was kind of like this Saharan blues band. It was a really cool band, and this was the guitar that I used in that project and a few other projects. So it's kind of had sentimental value to me for that, but it also had sentimental value to the maker for reasons which I won't go into, and very very sentimental value. So I pretty much trashed this guitar. I broke the binding on it, and I messed up the fretboard a bit, and it needed a refret, and so I think Darren was wary about trusting me with it, which is fair enough. So he hung it on the wall on his workshop for 5 years. So every time I would go there, I would be looking at this guitar thinking, because like when you connect with a guitar, it's a magical thing and it inspires you to make music. And that's what I had with this one. I had the inspiration with this guitar, and I just gelled with it. Because this guitar is 8.5 pounds, Honduras mahogany, Brazilian rosewood, authentic inlet. I could go into it, but that's not the point really, because you could even play a 200-pound guitar and you just connect with that guitar. It could be an Epiphone or anything. It doesn't matter. As long as you connect with it, that's the most important thing. And that's what I did with this very guitar, is I connected. And then I had other Les Pauls since I borrowed this one in that 5-year period. and I kept thinking about this one, you know. And so now I'm doing this project where I'm kind of doing the kind of sound of 66 Blues Breakers, Graham Bond Organisation, first Cream album, and I really wanted to get that vibe. And this guitar has that vibe. It has the sound of, you know, in it of Clapton and Mick Taylor and Greenie. And that first Cream album, you know, the sound of that Les Paul that Clapton was playing, you know, I can get those tones with this, or can get close with this guitar. So that's really why I kind of asked Darren about 18 months ago. I said, look, I really want this guitar, can I have it back? You know, and it needed repairs, it needed a lot of overhauling, which he eventually did. And he eventually gave me this guitar and just said, this time just look after it, which I promised him I would. So I've got this back, you know, really to use for my blues trio, because I want to go back to playing a Les Paul, and this time I want to play them through a Marshall to really get that British sound. And this guitar for me really invokes that kind of atmosphere, ambience of the mid-60s sound, you know, the British, what I call the British blues sound. So there you go. It's got Alan Dingwall pickups, because Alan Dingwall looks after me, he's a really good guy. So, you know, if someone looks after me, I look after them, you know, and I'm not afraid to say, you know, Alan Dingwall pickups, my favourite pickups, you know, because it's a two-way thing. Yeah, what else can I say? It's 8.5 pounds, so it's nice and light. You know, I wouldn't want something more than 8.5 pounds. I think Peter Green's guitar, Greenie, which Kirk Hammett has now, I think that's 8.5 pounds as well. So it's kind of around that perfect sort of weight. And what I love about this burst here, it's got a bit of flame, and depending on the angle, so if I have it there, maybe you're going to see the flame, but if I move it somewhat, it's going to disappear. I mean, I've got some lights flashing this way, but in certain light, if the light is dull, it's plain, it's a plain top. But then when it catches the light, then it explodes with beautiful flame, you know. And so that's what I love. I love those bursts where they can look really plain in a photo, but then you see them in real life, and the light shines on them, and it's you know, I don't like the ones which are over the top flame. I know it's not important for the tone, but that's just a little detail, another little detail which kind of adds up to a great guitar. So like I said, Honduras mahogany, you know, a lightweight Honduras mahogany, Brazilian rosewood fingerboard, which is a really nice fingerboard. And that's basically a really nice carve to it, and you know, it's got a really sort of nice full neck. It's not a skinny neck, it's quite a nice sort of handful. I guess if you had skinny or thin hands, sorry, small hands, you might want to go for a slim taper 60s neck, you know. And this might not suit you, but for me, my hands, it fits like a glove. But the thing about this guitar, it just dictates what to play, and that's, like I said, it doesn't need to be an expensive replica, you know. And when we're talking about replicas, you know, we're speaking about these guitars such as Terry Morgan's and the Stig, and I played Terry Morgan's, I played Stigs, and I played real bursts. So I'm in a kind of unique position to say, look, I played real bursts, over a dozen bursts, real ones. I played the famous replicas, Terry Morgan's, a bunch of them, a couple of Stigs, there's some other American makes I played. For me, this is my favourite replica, what I call a replica. This is my favourite, you know, and that's nothing to say the others aren't good, but this is the one that, you know, every time I played a Daniels guitar, it's sort of, it's the same kind of vibe as the 1950s guitars, you know. It's just that kind of essence. I can't explain it. You'd have to play a burst, and then you'd have to play some replicas to kind of understand. And that's not to say Gibson can't do it, because I'm sure there's some Gibson sort of custom shops or Murphy Labs which are really, really good, you know, so I'm not trashing them. Just that this is a particular guitar where it does what I want it to do, it sounds how I want it to sound, and that's the whole kind of crux of the matter. So, you know, it's just finding that guitar that really speaks to you and gives you the vibe, you know, and that's what I have with this Daniels burst. So check out Darren's guitars. He does a traditional model, which has a different head, slightly different here. I think it's just slightly different here, so that he gets past the legalities. and then the rest of it is just like a burst. So he does called a traditional. You can email him. I'll put the links in the description. And he does his own designs, which are really cool, which are totally different, but kind of the essence of a burst. They feel like a burst and play like a burst, but they have like a kind of a more modern neck joint, a cutaway thing here, like a strap, and they're even lighter, and they're really different headstock. So 3-a-side, but it's Daniel's own design, and again they capture the essence of a burst, but it's a new kind of design. So he's really onto something. I really love his guitars because they just have that je ne sais quoi. They have that ambiance. That, you know, some guitars are great and they're beautiful and they're perfectly made, but they're sterile and they don't give you that inspiration. So that's just a thing, you know. Just find that guitar, guys, that you connect with, and once you find that guitar, hang on to it. You know, don't sell it, you know, or trash it like I did, and then you lose it. So there you go. That's kind of my journey with this guitar. And I've got it back, and I'm going to make some music with it again. Okay, guys. Take care. Have a good weekend, and see you soon.